Hi, and welcome to the Heart of Success podcast. I'm the author and host, Keith Washo, from the book, The Heart of Success. Super excited to introduce you to Harry Dickinson. He's a Silicon Valley technology executive, CEO, and sales leader. During his career, Harry has led leadership roles with DeWalt, Texas Instruments, IBM, ARM, and Qualcomm, while also serving as CEO of Entridia, FST Technologies, and FSA Technologies. I first met Harry at Bigfoot Networks, which I had the privilege and honor to work with him, which got acquired by Qualcomm, and he was very kind to be part of this book and give some incredible insights on wisdom on living your professional and personal life in the right way. And I'm excited to introduce you to Harry so he can share some inputs on what he meant by what he said in this book. Harry, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you, Keith. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
So the first thing Harry's going to do is share 3 things that are identified in this book that came from him, and he's going to expand upon that, add some more color and context. And the first one, Harry, that I really appreciated in this book was this quote you said about be the last to speak. Listen to everyone, then coalesce what everyone said, then give your input. Expound upon that. How do you do that? Because most people don't. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think that is a skill that you end up learning after sitting through many meetings. As we all know, those are almost something you fight against sometimes in companies. Is let's see if we can do without having to have a meeting. But in meetings, you've got multiple people involved. Everybody has a thought or an opinion on whatever the topic may be, and oftentimes you want to be in a situation where you can add value to that topic, but you need to be able to read the room. You need to be able to understand what other people's thoughts are. So I found it always very valuable to listen to what other people were saying. And then, and I, going in, typically had a view or an opinion like we all do. And I think the thing that I found works real well for me was the ability to listen to everybody and see if you could come up with a consensus, especially if you're trying to solve a problem or you're trying to address an issue, a particular issue in the company. And I always like to say that the smartest guy in the room was the guy who spoke last. And because he had the ability to take all the wisdom and the opinions and basically put that into some sort of a concise and summary that allowed everybody to say, yeah, I got my 2 cents in, and you heard it, and he put it into the summary. So it's a skill that you learn, and you find that it helps one. You yourself understand the issues, understand the problems, and it is very it makes things run a lot more efficiently, if you will, especially in a management position. So.
Right. And one of the ways I wanted to twist the question to give you another way to answer this, being that you've been very successful selling hardware, software, and networking technology type products throughout your career, in addition to everything in the computer industry, is what if you were to be asked, if you were going to sell a product and they're ready for your pricing, they're ready for okay, we're interested in your product portfolio. What is your pricing? Would you start the call and say, this is how we do our programs, this is our pricing? Or would you start off maybe even asking a few more questions? Or would you just say, no, we're going to tell them what the pricing is in our program up front?
Sure.
How would you manage that? Because I've seen different schools of thoughts on that.
Yeah. I come from the school that says you don't know everything. And what you want to find out is the person you're talking to or the people that you're talking to. What's motivated them to want to talk to you? And typically that is done by the easiest way to do that is ask questions. Right. And in those questions, you kind of lead the conversation. You get them to talk about the issues you have, and hopefully their issues, if you've done your homework prior to the meeting, you've got an idea of what you believe their issues may be. And so you ask questions that gives them the opportunity to talk. And that's
Right.
very important,
Mhm.
so that you can, one, make the best use of their time as well as your time,
Mhm.
and get to, uh, rather than just say, I got the greatest thing since sliced bread, you just need,
Right.
you want them to talk about, um, what issues they have, and, uh, and how, uh, how the challenges they see on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully you have, a solution for them, and that's why you're there, to say, I think we have something that might be able to help you address your challenges and your issues. Um, so, but it's a series of questions. It's not just one question. You don't get that in one fell swoop, but it's basically you want to get them talking. You want to have
Yeah.
a discussion going. Um, it's not saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" Do you like fishing? Or any of that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about here, because their time's important. They're on the clock just like you are, and whether they're cognizant of that or not is it's hard to tell sometimes. But you'll find out when you talk to them, um, and if they've already heard about you, if they already believe they already know what you're providing. I always kind of slow down a bit, and the reason I slow down is I want to understand what they think they know about me or my product or my service. So I
Mhm.
lead questions in that direction. So you want to, because oftentimes people come into meetings with a preconceived idea, and you need to kind of address those perceptions before you go launch into whatever it is you're selling or you're providing.
All
So
right. Well, thank you for that, because I think it's a lost art in some ways. I remember when I was trained in CBS radio back, my first job out of college was an account executive to sell radio airtime. We're selling something that, radio ads. And
right,
they trained us on, you need to, when you meet with the client, you do a needs analysis. You walk them through a series of questions,
exactly,
find out what their pain points are, and then you say how CBS radio and ads can help address their pain points. So
right.
that phrase needs analysis was like, you probably heard of it in some of your sales
Yep.
training as well.
Yes.
The other second part to this book that I found interesting was this phrase, and it's not something you hear very commonly today, but when we were doing this book 10 years ago and we were launching new technologies at Bigfoot Networks, which was helping people improve their online gaming, and we're like, I don't know, are people going to love or want this product, or how do we position or sell it? You said this, you said, Keith, the key is, will the dog eat the dog food? And I remember hearing that phrase, and will the dog eat the dog food? All
Well,
right. It was very jarring, but interesting and compelling at the same time. So here's an opportunity to elaborate on that, about solving real market needs and delivering value to customers that they actually want. But yeah, can you mind expounding upon, will the dog eat the dog food?
yeah, it's a question you ask going in. It's a question you ask yourself during the process of introducing a technology or introducing a product. It's a question you ask after, as you walk out the door and go, "Do I think this customer is buying into what it is we're
Right.
selling?" And that's really what we're
Yeah.
talking about. We're talking about,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, did you make your point? Did you
Mm-hmm.
did you understand what his problems were? Did you
Right.
address his problems? Do you believe that your uh, services or products can deliver uh, something that will help them? Because the adage of, will the dog eat the dog food, is really, will he issue a purchase order, right? At the end of
Right.
the day, will he buy what you're selling?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what it really means. And so it's part of the process. It's saying, look, um, we've got something we think will help you, but at the end of the day, if he's not convinced that it's going to help him, um, you're not going to get the order. And so that's something you have to test for in the course of your conversation, your presentation. And at the end of the
Mm.
process, this happened a lot when I was doing international selling, especially in places like in Japan, as an example,
Hmm.
where language is always a barrier. In terms of when we used to talk about not saying things that were so-called colloquialisms or local, uh, sayings that were specific to U.S., specific to an American language, English language, and or your industry. You had to understand, are they understanding? So at the end of those process, oftentimes you needed to be very direct. What you find out though in Japan, that's not done. That is, you're that's just not a polite way, from their perspective, a polite thing to do. They're very uncomfortable with the direct approach of saying, "Well, did you think what we were talking about today is going to be able to help you?"
Yeah.
Um, and so you have to get a little more creative in those situations.
Hmm.
But if you're selling in the U.S. and you're doing business in the U.S., uh, you can get away with a lot more casualness, as we used to say, being more casual in your conversation, and it becomes much more formal where you are. Now, interesting enough, culturally, when you're in China or in Taiwan, Hong Kong, all those places where that culture is does business, you find it's just the opposite. You can be very direct, and it's
Hmm.
appreciated. Um, they you're trying to break down their defenses of against whatever their preconceived ideas are of you as a person, where you're from, your company, what products you deliver. And so that gets back to getting to understand who it is you're talking to and what their issues are. Um, and so anyway, uh, I find it very important to make sure that uh, you understand exactly what it is you're trying to get action you're getting that person or customer to take, and understanding that and trying to ask the right questions to get insight into that at the end of that process.
Yeah.
So,
One of the things, and this is a little bit of a zinger, Harry, because we didn't prep on this in our pre talk to the show, but you said something to me, and I remember as a young buck doing our sales and partnership at Bigfoot Networks and evangelizing the gaming technology to speed up the online gameplay. I was very big on being clear on the features and benefits and the numbers and the milliseconds, and I wanted to present exactly what it's going to do. And you said this word. You said, Keith, you need to obfuscate. Do you remember using that word on me?
oh yes,
Do you remember that
yeah,
word?
oh yeah.
Can you elaborate the benefits of that and what you meant by that?
Well, especially when you're dealing with engineers or dealing in a technical sell kind of situation. Um, what you find is that the reason you obfuscate is that you want to get them to want to take a look at it. And what you understand going in is they're going to decide for themselves, not based on what you're saying. They're going to based on the demonstration you're
Hmm.
willing to give them, or you've got to deliver a trial capability to them. You can download the software and try it for 30 days, that kind of thing. We found that was the only way we could sell technology because, at the end of the day, words are just words, especially to engineers. They don't they don't react to that. So obfuscate in that sense is a very general term. We're not
Hmm.
trying to hide from what we
Sure.
have, and but you also recognize that if you're putting hard numbers out there, statistics about your product, what it will do, speeds, um, how many nanoseconds per acre you get out of something, it those are numbers that you've gained from either experience, other customers. Your own engineering guys are telling us it's going to do this, this, and this. And at the end of the day, that customer will be way more comfortable.
Right.
And is if he is able to decide that for himself. So
Yes.
what you want to do is say, look, we believe, obfuscation in this case would be, we believe you can get a significant increase in performance from this software, but you're going to need to tell us what it does for you in your
Sure. Sure.
application.
Right.
And by trying it, what we're asking you to do is feed back to us once you've looked at the product.
Right.
Try. This is what we call kind of a trial close, right? On
Hmm.
getting him to try the product, is we'd like you to take it in and set up a demonstration, set up a situation where you can use the product for a period of time, and you come back and tell us, did it, one, do the things we said it was going to do, or two, did it meet your needs, and three, how many of those do you want? No, I'm joking. I'm joking about that. But typically, but a little bit of humor there. But
Yeah.
you want to, you absolutely want to, especially with the engineering guys. There's no way your amount of words are going to, um, convince them. They're going to prove it to themselves, and the reason for that is historic. Uh, all the people that went before you that promised my product or my service can do the following, and then it didn't.
Mm,
That's what people have experienced before,
right.
and so it's a real issue, and so it's you know the guys who we used to say, well, we try not to. It's to over. We try to under promise and over deliver is probably the best way to describe it. So obfuscate, I would use that. I use that word obfuscate as is a protection for yourself, and uh, it's a way that you present it to the customer where he wants to prove it to himself. I'll check
Right.
it out. I'll let you know that it does what I
Right.
need.
Exactly. That's great. And it reminds me of the sales technique that you don't want to come out, be the first one to throw the price out there. Like if you're buying a car, you don't want to say, oh, I'll give you like 30,000. See what they say first. They might say 20. I'll take
Yeah.
28. Right. And with
Yeah.
this, you don't want to, so you don't want to tell them, hey, it's going to save you X amount of percent in latency or milliseconds or improve lag by this percent. Let them go discover it because they might discover it did even more than what you were going to say it did. Right.
Exactly. You don't. In fact, I had a rule that with my
Mm,
sales people that I talk to, guys, don't talk price. That's not, you don't even mention it. You let them wait for them to ask you.
mhm,
You
mhm,
talk about everything but price.
mhm.
And the reason is for just as you described here, you don't know, you know, where their level of where they're at, what their perception is. And if they do ask you and say, well, we have a list price. Here's the price that we list it for, and but you wait for them to ask, okay?
Right.
And
Exactly.
I never sell on price. I forget
Mhm.
because selling on price is it's I prefer to sell on value. Okay, and what I mean by that is that look at this capability that we're going to deliver to you and you're going to try um, is going to deliver some capabilities to you, and we think enough of our product that we think that's going to be valuable to you. But you need to tell us if I
Mhm.
come back and you say, it didn't work for me, I don't think I can use this, then I'm going to go, price didn't matter, did it? It if you can't use it and you don't want, then we've wasted our time.
Yeah.
So it's about selling value and doing your homework in advance, knowing that what you have should, you know, address their concerns. Um, Again, that's from years of selling technology and
Mhm.
products that you're either selling on performance or
Mhm.
capability, functional capability, and so on. But
Easier said than done, but all that is in the book, thanks to Harry's inputs. In addition to this third final piece before we shift gears and go to the next segment, which is you mentioned, Harry, to be successful personally, professionally, specifically with professional achievement, was that three things: work hard, be proactive, and get things done. Now, it's a lot of people that sounds okay, work hard, be proactive, and get things done. Easier said than done. How do you do that? And I asked you, does that mean you would swallow like the big frog first, do the hardest, biggest thing in the morning? Or what was your approach that helped you be effective that you could share with people?
yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, but I'll try to be brief. Yeah, I think one of the things that helped me was, in terms of dealing with, all the, especially in a management level where people are coming in with issues and problems they'd like help with, um, was that I tried to get to dissect the problems in advance. Um, and that, so when somebody came in, and it gets back to the listening, the first item we talked about, what exactly are you dealing with? Okay. And see if you can determine, or, you know, eh, what exactly are they trying to deal with? Oftentimes, in doing that, forcing the people to bring in you the problem to describe the problem gives you a lot of insight as to what the problem is and or issues are, and and many times you'll find that there are other motivating factors from them coming in and bringing it to you. And so I always like to engage with people in that regard to say, let's talk about what the issues are, and I really enjoyed lending an ear to what it was they wanted to talk about. Um, so for me, it was very much falling back to the listening. Um, I find that, and this kind of goes back to hiring people a little bit, but to the earlier you started this topic, um, I wouldn't hire somebody unless they were motivated. And
Mhm.
that's the key here. People, I wanted people to be passionate about their job. I wanted people I want to get people that felt they could do my job. That was always my favorite. Try to find that guy that you believe can do your job. And the reason for that is, one, he's motivated, uh, or she is motivated to get to that point where they would have your job. And two, it life got much easier for you if you have yourself out there, which you can do what you can do. But what if you're basically replicating yourself across multiple people, and that are passionate about what they're doing. They like what they're doing, and they'll, if you ask them to, they'll run through that brick wall for you. You know, and that was my key, was who I hired and how we kept them motivated. And if I had people that were not motivated, you ran into those cases, or uh, they seemed to not care about their job, then you have to make a change. And then that's just
Mhm.
the reality of in a management role. But I've told both of my sons, who are now in their late 30s or early 40s, um, and they came to me and said, "Dad, what is it you did?" Um, and not to my chagrin, but I always found it interesting. Neither one of them wanted to do what I did. They had no interest in any of that. And uh, from a parenting standpoint, it was about, and I told them, I said, guys, what you need to do is you need to go out there in the real world And first of all, get an education. After that, as long as you've had that education, which I believe is very important, as a baseline, go find something that you are passionate about, that you really like doing, because you're going to
Hmm.
be doing that every day. And if
Yeah.
you're not passionate about it, it'll come across to whoever it is you're dealing with, whether it's workers or your boss or your customers,
Hmm.
depending on what it is you're doing. Um, and if you really like what you're doing, you know, uh, don't worry about making money. Yeah, and that sounds kind of funny, but it
Hmm.
said if you really like what you're doing, and you'll do such a good job that they'll want to pay you more. That's what I used to tell them. I said, so so both of my sons are went out in a totally different direction than I did, but it was the thing. They're doing things that they really want to do. They really like it, and it's not a job. I get up in the morning and I go to work, and uh, I can't wait to go to work. That's what
Yeah.
you need to feel like. Can't wait to get
Yeah.
into that office, grab a cup of coffee, and see what's
Hmm.
happening today. That's what I enjoyed, and
Hmm.
so it never felt like I had a job. It felt like I was uh, out there. I didn't want to tell my wife I was out there having a good time, but I'm actually working my butt off. But that that was um, that was just I had to feel that way about the job, or I didn't want to do it. You know,
Right.
and I there got to the point where I had jobs, had positions in companies where I just went, this I'm not having any fun. This
Yeah.
is you know, uh, so I did something about it. Either I moved on or did something else or
Right.
whatever. But
Yeah.
uh, if you can't give something 100%, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
That's what was the question I always asked.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. The next part is in the transition of this show is to get to the second part, which was a lot of the advice you gave in here was from the first 1.0 of Harry of working as an executive of some of the biggest, best tech companies in the world. And then the 2.0 Harry was the one who became more on the consulting side. And you'd had a huge run doing that the last 20 years. And since we're on the 10-year reunion, if I were to interview you today, based on what you've learned in the last 10 years of consulting, what advice would you add to this book to help people succeed professionally and personally?
Well, a lot of that gets ingrained from your original experiences in technology. I love technology. I loved doing startup companies. So when I got into consulting, I said, where can I add value? Because, let me digress just a second. Um, I had a goal early on in my career I said I wanted to retire at 50 years old. And part of that was in the world of Silicon Valley and technology. At 50, you were ancient. You might as well be on Medicare and, sitting on a beach somewhere and counting your toes. Um, because that, so I just said to myself, I want to get to a point where at that age, I can go do anything that I want to do. And I lasted about 6 months, bored stiff. I was just bored because I went from technology startup companies. I did a series of startups, and that was life in the fast lane, I called it. When I retired, I moved. I didn't just go over to the slow lane. I went off the exit ramp, and I'm sitting over there in the weeds, going, "What the heck? What happened?" And what I found was, um, we used to say that it was uh, working in startups, working in Silicon Valley and technology was life in the fast lane. It was 24/7, you know, all the time. And it became like it was, it was like too many cups of coffee. You were just wired, and that's how you felt all the time. And as I got to the advanced age of 50, I said, I want to go stop and smell the roses a little bit here. And I did that. Um, and, but I looked around and I said, I'm really bored. I really liked the life of being involved in technology because it was always the next thing coming over the hill. So I decided to get into consulting. And what I was going to do was going to take my passion for those things and pass that on to uh, and focus on startup companies, which were typically in the technology world are started by engineers who have no or typically don't have business backgrounds. So didn't know how to go get funding from investors to start the company, didn't know how to hire people, didn't know how to put a presentation together, a business plan. Um, those are the things that I said, I can help them with that.
Hmm.
And so uh, that's how I got started in it. And I've probably done a dozen, worked with a dozen companies over those years. And it became, that's how I got into it. And then the challenge of any consultant, and this is generic to being a consultant, is um, will they listen to what you're telling them? And one of the things I found was that um, I'd be telling people, I'd be telling these companies, I'd be telling them the same thing. Um, whether it didn't matter which technology company it was, and the engineers, the mistakes they made or the challenges they had were ones I'd seen many, many times, and they were generic to a startup company situation. And so it became very relatively easily to explain that. What was the challenge was to see them execute on that.
Right.
And
Right.
if they didn't execute, and oftentimes they don't, um, you sit in a meeting and you say, guys, when we walk out the door, we're all going to go to the left, down the hall to the left. What would happen? We'd all stand up, go out. Half would go down to the left, half would go down to the right end of the hallway. And so there was always um, this unfulfilling portion of being a consultant where you knew you were giving them sound sage advice
Right.
because you'd been there, done that. These things were from experience, from seeing it happen multiple times. And it wasn't that I was smarter than anybody else. I wasn't. It's just that I had been there and done that. Okay. And that was what you were telling them. So at some point during that process over the last 20 years, oftentimes I got asked to join the companies because, and I did that. I started to do that where I would do it on a consulting basis. Um, and it was in part a kind of a defensive move to make sure that what I told them they should be doing, if I was there and participating, I could help them,
Hmm.
because do course correction, because you tell them once, they may start out okay, and then quickly they veer off one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so you're forever got, you say, I pull out the old, you know, PowerPoints and say, guys, when we met, here are the three things we said we were going to go do. And how are we doing against those? And
Hmm.
the classic is they'd gone off and, well, yeah, we heard you, but we had a better idea and went over here. And I said, how'd that work out for you? Well, it didn't. Why is
Yeah.
that? And so you dissect that
Yeah.
stuff, and you found that they were great learning experiences.
Mm.
Um, and so to some extent, it's a little frustrating because you didn't listen to what I said. Had you
Hmm.
listened, you wouldn't be we wouldn't be having this meeting right now.
Right.
So
Right.
that kind of thing. So over time, I very much enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it because it allowed me to keep my little toe in the high tech pond because technology moves so quickly and changes so dramatically that it allowed me to stay in the selected fields I got involved with. It allowed me to stay in those, um, keep my finger and my little toe, I used to say, in the pond of the ever changing technology, and um, and keep current. Basically, is what
Right.
I enjoy doing. Um, so that was my experience. Even today, here I'm at the ripe old age. I'll be a year and a half. I'll be 80, and
Congratulations.
I can't believe that. I know it's just crazy.
Still vertical, still vertical.
I'm still 1 foot above
Mhm.
ground, and it's a good thing. Another good day. Um, and I find that I've slowed down a little bit. I'm not taking on many new clients. I've got I'm on boards of several companies where I don't have to. It's not on the phone every day with them kind of thing, but it's um, I mean, once a quarter you you talk and you kind of find out what's going on and how can I help kind of thing. So
Mhm.
back to questions. What can I do for you? You know, so
Exactly.
and there's always something. There's always some way you can help. And so, in fact, just last week, one of them came back and says, "Can you help me find somebody that will replace me?" You know, me being the CEO I was talking to. Said, I need somebody to take over. I said, "This is driving me crazy. I gotta get." He said, I founded the company. I want to participate in the company, but I don't want to run it." So I
Right.
said, "Help me find a CEO." So this week I'm going to be doing headhunter stuff. You know, it just never ends. But yeah, as long as it's fun and the technology is interesting, I don't mind doing it. Um, the other unique thing that I did, maybe just I should mention this, was that I didn't compensation wise, I didn't do it for money. I I
Mhm.
I did very well in my work days, and did enough startups and so on, and had enough return on my time that I invested with stock and everything else, and was able to live comfortably, retire comfortably. And so what I did is I said, guys, startups are cash poor. I said, I don't expect you to pay me.
Mhm.
If I'm on the board and you want me to travel somewhere, I expect you to pick up the
Mhm.
expenses of that travel. I've had guys want me to fly to Hong Kong, that kind of stuff. Um, but so I'm not taking compensation, but what I will do is just give me some shares of stock, some options
Mhm.
in your company, and that's fine for me. So if I can help you be successful and you are successful, ultimately I will be putting more stock into my portfolio. So anyway,
That's
that's how it. And by the way, it was much easier to be a consultant that way because you didn't have to deal with contracts and money and just a stock agreement. That's all you needed, and I was happy. So
yeah, that sounds like a
anyway,
win-win that they can
yep,
get someone with your experience and your expertise and seasonality of everything and not have to feel like, oh, we have to pay this cash up front, and allows you to get more opportunities to consult with innovative, great companies. It's a win-win
it's
for both.
it's interesting on LinkedIn. I had to finally close my LinkedIn account because I literally was getting contacted weekly, uh, you know, by companies, by people saying, we looked at your resume. Can you help us?" You know, and
Yeah. I'm
I thought,
full. There's only one Harry Dickinson.
well, no, I just not that so much. It's just you can you want to enjoy life too. You know, I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
other things I like to do. So,
yeah.
anyway,
The third part, the conclusion here of the interview is in the book. There's a part where you were able to give some quotes, and I thought we'd end with one of your favorite quotes or sayings. And I remember you saying this phrase when we were in a meeting getting ready to present technology to Netgear. And I was bouncing around the room excited about our presentation. And you looked at me in the eyes. You said, Keith, you know who Jerry Rice is? And I go, I don't. Yeah, I know Jerry Rice. He said, well, remember when he scored a touchdown, act like he's been there before. So Keith, act like we've been there before. So I thought maybe you can expound upon that quote, or if you have a different quote. I remember you also said something about skiing, about a quote relative to skiing on the edge, not too fast, but fast enough so it brings you the thrill. So maybe you can elaborate upon those two.
Yeah. I was an avid skier in my youth. Yeah. And we used to talk about, it kind of goes with being in the fast lane of startups. We're living on the edge, and that's where that term comes from. And in skiing, living on the edge was the difference between holding your edge against the slope and then releasing that edge and you're sliding down the hill, So, we said that was more an issue of saying, look, people who are enthusiastic about their product and are anxious to tell you about it, and most people, especially if you're selling into engineers or really any type of selling, if you overly hype, it'll come off as hype. And that's what you want to avoid. You don't want to hype what it is you're selling or doing. Services. Right. You can be selling insurance or anything else. It doesn't matter. If you overly hype something, people automatically, we all have that
hype meter.
Hype meter. Yeah. It's in our head. It's kind of like this guy's feeding me a load. I don't want. So I that's what I meant by that saying. You want to act like you've been there, meaning calm down and be you can't be listening well, and if you are talking, you cannot be focused on their needs, finding out about them and what it's going to take to get them to join, to buy into what you're doing. If you're sitting there talking to them, doing all the talking, it just, it just, you can't do both, maybe some people can. I've never been able to do it. So I think you want to put your energy into understanding who it is you're talking to and what the requirements are and so on. And so that's you need to be calm and you need to be professional. We used to use that word a lot.
Right.
And a professional salesperson is will be that person. They're there. They know stuff. They've obviously got a product and a service they're trying to sell, but you don't want to come off as, God, I need this. The baby needs a new pair of shoes. No, you cannot. You cannot come across that way.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're at the craps table in Las Vegas. Rolling the dice. Yeah. Baby needs a new pair of shoes. So that's something we. I tried to avoid and stay grounded. Basically, is another way to say it. So.
There's that phrase: calm, cool, and collected. Just act like you've been there before. Another way to say it, or
absolutely,
you want to. And with selling, you want to be selling and telling. You want to. The consultative sales approach, ask a couple questions. And we talked about earlier about leading the witness, and there's a guiding and having them say the things that are relevant to what you can help them with. Right. So thank you for that. Yeah. All right. Well, Harry, any final closing thoughts? Because you've been great. We've been able to go over the three things, important things that you mentioned in the Heart of Success book. You talked a little bit about some of the things you learned along the way in consulting, and we just did a little quote type of perspectives. Any final parting words you'd like to share that you've learned along the way?
Well, I learned something today. This is my first podcast. So, yay. I have a number of friends that are doing podcasts, but this is the first time actually doing it myself. So
Thank you.
It's an interesting experience. I hope it adds some value to you and the people that watch this. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So good.
Well, thank you, Harry Dickinson. I can learn all about Harry's input in the book and look up Harry Dickinson. I know his LinkedIn profile, he says, has been retired, but he's a living legend in Silicon Valley, one of the best leaders that the Silicon Valley has had. And it's been an honor and privilege, Harry, to have you as part of the book and to be a friend and colleague of yours and actually had the opportunity to work with you and for you. And so thanks for being here. And check out Harry Dickinson. He's online. You can search for him. He pops up. All right.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Harry.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Okay.